Hi guys, I hope everybody's having a good week. I am going to do my final video on the student that I worked with this semester. I had a lot of mandated students that I worked a lot with, but I really took interest in this one student and spent a lot of time with him. I've decided to do it on him instead of one of my mandated students. He's not mandated, this student that I'm talking about, but he was a kid that I saw weekly. I probably saw him um, 40 or so times. And recently it's been more due to his situation that he's in right now. So I hope it's okay that I give him a name that's not his name. I just decided to call him Anthony for the point of this video. So that I don't accidentally say his real name because I've done that before. Anthony is a student that was referred to me by the junior high counselors. He's a 15-year-old female, or oh my gosh, 15-year-old male student who's a freshman at Messina. I have the freshman students. And he's always been very socially and emotionally immature. Um, and usually the junior high tells us that about a lot of kids, and they mature quickly throughout the year. The student is very, very far behind a lot of the kids in his grade. So he is very immature for his age. And he's older than a lot of kids in his grade already. He's like 15 years old and 11 months or something like that. So he's pretty old for his grade. Um, so the big problem that this student is facing, he's been through a lot of trauma in his life. But most recently, his sister last year, I want to say it was March of 2018, overdosed on heroin and passed away. And that was really, really hard on him. He lives with his mother, his father, and then it was his sister, and he had an older brother that's a lot older, so he wasn't really in the picture at all. So it was really him and his sister that were together most of the time. She was still probably 8 years older than him, but they were close. He lives with his parents now. His dad is supportive and is there for him emotionally, while his mom is kind of the more like, she's a little harder on him, like this is what it is, like get over it, deal with it type of thing. And him being so emotionally immature, it's not a good combination. So it's been an interesting year working with him, and especially the last couple months because it's been the 1 year of his sister's death, and he's struggling a lot with it. So that is why he was referred to me. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going through the questions. Um, so he, like I said, is a freshman that is 15 and very immature. He has some kids that he's friends with in his grade, but a lot of his kids or his friends are actually eighth graders. And in Messina, the junior high and the high school aren't connected at all. So he struggles with that aspect of things too. He doesn't have a lot of people that he thinks understand him in the high school. A couple of his good friends that are eighth graders have also gone through some loss in their life, so he turns to them as kind of a support, and he feels as if his friends in the high school don't really understand it. So just going through some of the questions on number 2, how does he present himself? He comes from a family that is pretty poverty stricken. His dad doesn't work. His mom works part-time. They live in what is considered the projects of Messina. But for what he comes from, he presents pretty well. He's always clean. He's an awesome kid. He's the sweetest little thing. Wouldn't hurt a fly. But he breaks down so easily, and that's what we've been working on a lot this year. So I've seen him all year, and I've kind of known his story. But most of the year, we spend a lot of time on smaller scale things, like how can we control ourselves better when we start to have a breakdown in school. He tends to get frustrated very easily, especially with courses such as math, because it's not his favorite subject. And he's got a tough teacher. She's tough for freshmen. He struggles there, and as soon as a teacher gives him a demand and he doesn't know what to do, he either lashes out or he mentally breaks down. He cries and cries and cries, and it takes over an hour to get him out of that. So all year we've kind of been working like on some things that we can do instead of finding ourselves in that situation. Recently he's gotten better at it. In gym class, he was going for a walk. All the kids either had a walk or run the trail. Most of them run. He's not a runner. He was walking the trail. The gym teacher told him to speed up. He doesn't like the gym teacher. He got angry, tried to walk himself through some breathing techniques. The gym teacher kept poking him, and he just broke down and started crying. And he tends to always go back to, um, you don't know what I've been through in my life. Like, how dare you say that to me? Which he's been through a lot, but sometimes that's not an appropriate situation to use that. So we've talked through some scenarios like that. You know, being your teacher, pushing you in gym class, um, it's kind of something that we can handle at school, right? Like, we don't need to, uh, I don't know. He struggles with understanding what's related to his system and what's not. So we've been working on that, and he's gotten pretty good with his coping skills. Recently we found that little hand puzzles, so like Rubik's cubes, or I have these like things that clip together, and they just keep clipping. I don't know if that makes sense. And those really help calm him down. So he keeps those in different areas. He keeps one in his math teacher told him he could have one in there in case he needs it. He's got one in our office. He's got one in his resource room. And they're just small little things that he can do if he's getting worked up. Keeping his hands busy helps him. Um, he's got an app on his phone that he does at home. It's called Calm Harm, and it kind of walks you through some different techniques. Like, are you feeling this? This is what you can do. If you're feeling this is what you can do. And he's learned a lot of those and uses them. Um, we've also just been working on getting him involved in more things in school. So we got him into Liberty Partnership, which has been a big help for him. It's a lot of supportive students who a lot of them have been in a situation similar to his, and he feels comfortable going there and talking to people about it. So that's been good. Um, he goes to Horizons. I don't know if anybody knows what Horizons is. It's called Horizons Clubhouse, and it's for students to go to after school or on the weekends. And there are workers there that are kind of like not certified, obviously, but counselors, and work with students, and they bring in people to work on like drug prevention and loss, and they do groups and all that stuff. So we've got him into some of that stuff. And then big scale things, talking about his sister's death. That was something that he kept pretty quiet at the beginning of the school year. Um, but as of recently, it's come up more and more as the time reached his sister's 1 year passing. So that was 2 weeks ago, and he fell apart and derailed. And finally, I knew about the situation, but I wasn't going to push him too much for it. He finally spilled it all to me, told me everything and how he was feeling about it. And when he told me it, he said, "Ever since my sister's death, I have this weird feeling that nothing's real, and I've thought about committing suicide before." So right then and there, we did an evaluation. His parents came and picked him up, brought him to Claxton. He was assessed there, and now he sees a counselor outside of school. So that was one big step that we took. And told his parents, I think that this is necessary. And then we called over to Claxton, let him know that he was coming. And the next day, we hooked him up with a counselor at North Star. And he's been seeing her, and that's been going well. They believe he has bipolar depression. Being that his sister passed away from a drug overdose, his mom is pretty resistant to medication because she's deathly afraid of losing another child, which is understandable. So he's started on a low dose of that, as well as seeing this counselor a lot. So he's working with her on the like not thinking things are real part of things, and the bigger scale, the loss, the trauma that is involved with that. Obviously, we talk about it when he needs to at school, but as school counselors, we're not as certified to deal with those situations as mental health counselors are. So as soon as that came up, obviously I was willing to listen and talk to him, but I felt it was totally out of my hands, and it was time I involved somebody bigger. So we got him into mental health, and he sees a counselor weekly. And I asked him the other day how it was going, and he said it's awesome. She's so helpful. So that's a good connection that he has as well. So let's see. Anthony also has anxiety. Um, which causes him to work himself up while he's at school. So one small problem turns into a bigger problem, turns into a bigger problem, and he has gotten better at it, but he struggles with the how do I work myself down from this one small problem and not let them build up until I explode. Um, and he's gotten better at that. He did come into my office a couple of days ago and said, or before break, and said, I was pretty frustrated in math class, and I asked the teacher if I could go get a drink quickly, and he said in the hall. I stopped and did my breathing, and was able to go back to class and got through the rest of the day. So that to me was a big step because he has struggled with that for a long time. And mom isn't going to allow the anxiety medicine to be high dosage because she's, like I said, she's just against that. Addiction and drugs, alcohol abuse run in their family. His dad was an alcoholic. His sister passed away from an overdose. His older brother, I don't know too much about, but I know he was kicked out of the house for similar things. So there's a lot of fear around that. And mom's pretty anxious when it comes to stuff like that as well. So he clearly gets the anxiety from mom. But mom is more, we don't need help. Like that's not the kind of people we are. So she tries to deal with her own stuff on her own, which is tough because then Anthony doesn't feel like he can go to her with his problems because she's just going to tell him, get over it. Like, we don't worry about this stuff. Another thing about Anthony is that he's gotten, at the beginning of the school year, he was deathly afraid to come to our office. I don't know what it is, but I just remember one of the first times he was supposed to come down and meet with me. He was having a tough day. Again, math AIS, couldn't understand a problem, just lost it. And the AIS teacher came down and was like, Anthony's in the hallway, but he won't come in. And I went out and I was like, hey, dude, like, you want to come in? And he was crying and just couldn't even talk, just backed away down the hallway from me. And I could tell that this was totally new to him. He had never talked to somebody about this stuff before. And I finally got him calmed down. We sat in the hall for a minute and he finally came in my office. And it took him a long time to get adjusted to it, a couple weeks. But we slowly got there. So that was awesome. He's made a lot of progress this year. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything that's important. Oh, so the other thing I just wanted to say about him is that he is a student that is very immature and struggles in school greatly. His parents also don't believe in special ed services, so he's been referred before, but his mom says no and refuses to let him have a 504 IEP. So with that, it's tough. It's tough to work with him or even mandate anything because he's not a special ed student. So this student, again, is a super nice, friendly student. He can make anybody smile. He just has like a soft, happy smile. So those are definitely some of his strengths. He's polite. He listens when given advice. Yes, he struggles to understand it, but he listens. And I think long term, what I think needs to happen is I think he needs to continue going to counseling, and his parents need to continue to reinforce that. And my recommendation is that next year he seeks counseling by whoever his school counselor is next year as well. And they do weekly check-ins to continue working on those smaller scale things, such as how do we work ourselves down from those small problems before they blow up and turn into big problems that are keeping us out of class. And if a teacher says something to us, what's the proper way to react? Like, how do we react, and what is not, like, how do we treat adults? Kind of, he struggles with that sometimes because he gets so frustrated. I would like to see him stay in Liberty Partnership and continue going to Horizons to get that help. And he was struggling with his medication and wanted off of it because he said it wasn't working, and it had only been 3 weeks. So I hope that his parents give it the chance to see if it works and continue to work with doctors because he used to be pretty resistant after what happened to his sister. So I'm really hopeful that this student is able to continue to make progress. He's made a lot this year, and I look forward to watching him. If you guys have any questions, just let me know.